Dallas is booming. And of course, that's bad news. Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle with Stephen Green and Bill Whittle, brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com, as well as our friends at the Patriot Post. If you haven't done so already, go over to the Patriot Post, use the link below, and download your free copy of the Patriots Primer on American Liberty. I think you'll find it a useful resource and something you'll want to share with others. Gentlemen, I live in the greater Dallas, Texas metropolitan area, and there's a story that draws its source from a U.S. Census Bureau report of recent vintage. And it has two terms in it that I hadn't heard before that have basically declared that the booming economy in the greater Dallas area is a problem. The first term is job sprawl, and the second term is spatial inequality. They both refer to the same idea. And basically, Steve Green, the problem is this. Lots of new jobs are coming to the Dallas area, not only corporate headquarters like KFC, Geico, Liberty Mutual Insurance, Pizza Hut, Samsung, Raytheon, and Toyota. Wow. Those headquarters here, either coming here or expanding here. But there's a lot of sort of subsidiary businesses off of them, a lot of retail growth, a lot of service industry stuff. So just in general, prosperity in the areas just north of Dallas. But the problem, Steve, is that low-income people generally live in South Dallas. And it's a long drive on a tollway with heavy traffic for people who may not have cars and who can't afford to live north of the city. Stephen Green, I don't want to be sarcastic about this topic, and we could easily do that. I'm sure you do, but I look at this and I say, what is the conservative response to the fact that job growth doesn't happen where the jobs are most needed? It actually happens in the areas that are already most blessed, so to speak.
Well, not to be too callous, but jobs are where the work is. This is really simple stuff. Jobs are where the work is, where the work needs to be done, where the offices are, where the oil drilling is going on, and all the rest. And you know what? People are mobile. If people weren't mobile, we'd all still be huddled together, all 7 billion of us in the Olduvai Gorge. Be horrible. All that crowding. You think the traffic's bad in Dallas now. You put 7 billion people in the Horn of Africa, man. That's just nuts. Now I'm starting to sound like Joe Biden. He got me so upset. Listen, people are so mobile. We had a lot of poor people in places like England and Germany and France and Italy and Ireland and Spain who got off their asses and came to the New World, and they had literally nothing, and they built this damn country. Pretty amazing, isn't it? And when prospects looked even better out west, some of these other poor people, these descendants of those original poor people, put what little they had in covered wagons and spent a couple of years trekking west, trying not to get killed or die from Indians or weather or starvation or any of the many other things that could afflict you on a 2-year voyage across the country in a wooden wagon with no roads, to settle out west somewhere to try and build a better life. This is like the American pinnacle, the distilled version of what human beings have been doing since the very beginning of our existence, pulling up stakes and going to where life is better. We didn't need a fancy term for it. We didn't need to bitch and moan and have a government program for it. We just got up and did it because life was better over there. This is not This is nothing new. This is not a situation. This is not a cause for alarm. Right now, we have employers across the nation screaming for qualified workers. They're begging. They're raising pay. They're doing all of these things. The economy is so great. And you know why the left is pissing on it? They're pissing on it because, number one, they couldn't create this wonderful situation. And number two, with this wonderful situation in existence, they haven't figured out a way to kill it yet.
Bill Whittle, I have the advantage of working in another job in retail, and I get to see the kind of people who live in north of Dallas area, and frankly, they come from many miles beyond that. But what I've noticed is that it really is that sort of American melting pot. I mean, we have people from all over the world who are moving here. Being a technology hub, as the Dallas metro area increasingly is, we've got people coming from other countries who are very smart people and who are getting these jobs in the tech sector. It is something that is, to me, it is a marvel. But to the folks who are analyzing this census data, they're looking at it and saying, look, this is a problem. The jobs aren't occurring where they're supposed to. Bill, it seems to me that the people originally congregated south of Dallas because there were probably jobs there, and there aren't anymore. And why is it right to now say to people who have put down roots and have their kids going to these elementary schools and are living in these communities, I'm sorry, folks, the people who are opening the new branch of Raytheon don't want to put it in South Dallas. They want to put it north. And so if you want to work there, you've got to uproot your entire family and move north. Wouldn't it be more sensible for the government to kind of offer tax incentives and inducements to get Raytheon to put that plant in South Dallas?
The entire premise is so interesting because the way, obviously you're referencing an article and it's a left-wing perspective article, but the argument is that the jobs are not showing up where they're most needed. And that is absolutely false. The jobs are showing up exactly where they're needed. The unemployed people are not where the jobs are, but that's not the same thing. The jobs are showing up exactly where they're needed. If the economy, we're just going to keep it real simple. If North Dallas is booming, then people need to hire people in North Dallas. That's where the jobs are. That's where they're needed. We have growing business. We're just going to simplify this to the bone, right? We have growing businesses in North Dallas. That's where the jobs are needed because it's growing. We have no businesses, let's say, complete stagnation in South Dallas. That's where jobs are not needed. So the entire premise is wrong. The problem is not the jobs are not where they're needed. The problem is that there are unemployed people in Dallas who they claim are not able to get to these jobs. And let's grant that case. Without question, there are some people who can't get to these jobs. So let's look at what the problem really is. The problem is not that there are not jobs appearing in South Dallas because nothing's growing in South Dallas. One more time, I am simplifying this for the sake of clarity. The jobs are in North Dallas, and that means that if you want a job, you've got to either live in North Dallas or get to North Dallas, and that's the reality of the situation. So what are we going to do about it? Well, as it turns out here in Los Angeles, property prices are unbelievably high. On our backstage show, we were talking about some of the real estate prices and how high they were in North Dallas, and I nearly laughed myself off the chair in terms of, somebody left a zero. Right. Somebody left a zero off of these things. So what happens in Los Angeles where property values are very high and all of the real job growth in Los Angeles is concentrated at the very least west of downtown Los Angeles? That's where the real money is. And most of it's west of the 405 freeway. So what happens? Well, during the 80s, I've been here since 88. During the 80s and 90s, they built enormous numbers of residential neighborhoods out in places like the Inland Empire, places like Pomona, Chino, up north in places like Palmdale. Just vast numbers of houses were being built. And these were affordable houses. These were houses that people could actually get into. But the problem is they were so far from work that if you bought one of those houses, you were looking at a 2-hour commute each way. And it's probably more like 2.5 now. And there are people today, right this very day, who are driving 2.5 hours to get into work to go to Los Angeles. And then they're driving 2.5 hours going back home in places like Pomona and Riverside and all the rest of it. They're doing this because they made the decision that they would rather own a home far away from where the work was than rent a home or rent an apartment closer to where the work was. That was their personal decision. They wanted to own a home, and there you go. Now, let's forget about all the problems with overbuilding and the low interest and no interest loans that, that got us into the financial trouble. But that's basically what happened. They decided they wanted to go where the work was, and so they commuted a little bit longer. The real problem here is not where the jobs are, because certainly North Dallas is within commuting distance of South Dallas. It doesn't seem to me to be like you're being asked to drive across the country every day. The problem is that they're outlining is that the people in South Dallas they're simply too poor to be able to afford to commute to North Dallas, and therein lies the problem. Okay, well, the problem then is simply this. The people in South Dallas are poor because they're not able to do the jobs in North Dallas. They're not able to do the jobs in North Dallas because they were never educated to the degree that they needed to be educated in an information age economy, to which we can blame the Democratic Party that generally governs inner cities and the Democrats who say that standards don't matter, testing doesn't matter, we're going to promote you socially whether you get the grades or not. The absolute abandonment of any kind of standards in the educational system in the last 20 years, 30 years, has imprisoned those people in South Dallas. It has put them there in a place where the only jobs they can get are the kind of jobs that don't pay well enough to commute to North Dallas. Those people needed to be educated, and they still need a lot of help with vocational training. So the question is simply this. You cannot say, we need to send more jobs to South Dallas. What you have to do is you have to say, okay, we have people in South Dallas who can do the jobs in North Dallas, so they're going to commute there now. And those who cannot commute and who can do the jobs are going to have to find a way to get there, whether it's ride sharing or buses or whatever. And then for the people who are in South Dallas who are not capable of doing the jobs in North Dallas because they weren't educated to that degree, then we need to have some kind of vocational assistance which already exists for those people who want to work where the jobs are. But this business about I'm not where the jobs are, therefore the job has to come to me, is the essence of modern progressivism. And the essence of modern progressivism is everything should come to me and be given to me at all times, because anything that inconveniences me, causes me trouble, causes me emotional stress is racist and white supremacist and patriarchal and all the rest of it. I should not be expected to have to undergo any hardships. And this includes things like voting, by the way. Like voting. Well, we don't need IDs for voting because the idea of somebody who's poor going down to get a driver's license is beyond their means. Really? It's beyond their means to go down and get a state ID, take one bus trip on one day every 10 years in order to get a license to vote. That's beyond your means. Now, either that is the low expectations of false race, whatever the sentence is.
Soft bigotry and low expectations.
Thank you. It's either that or it's a gross insult to the people who actually are poor in this country, who are capable of doing all of this stuff. And it's a terrible insult to the number of poor people who get up and work their butts off every day and get up at 5 a.m. in order to take buses for 2 or 3 hours to get to where they need to be to get a job. Just like I did, just like you did. I had 2-hour commutes in Los Angeles. And one of my goals in life was to say, I would like to have a studio someplace close enough to my home so I don't have to go through that anymore. That was a life goal for me, which I've managed to achieve. But that was only after years and years and years of taking buses from North Hollywood to Culver City, which is a 2.5-hour process. And I had to do that because that's where the editing job was. And so I don't want to hear it. I want to hear why these people are not able to get to North Dallas if that's where the jobs are. And I want to know what can be done to help them to get to North Dallas. And then I want to know that if they were able to get to North Dallas, would they be employable anyway? And if not, what can be done to improve their education standards and their educational abilities, make them unique enough so that they're needed in North Dallas? And that's a look at the actual problem, not that the jobs didn't show up where the unemployed people are.
Yeah. Scott, can I throw in one last thing?
Yes.
I forgot to mention this, and it was the foremost on my mind. We were on backstage. One of the reasons the recovery from the Great Recession was so prolonged and so slow and so awful is so many millions of people were underwater on their home loans and they couldn't sell. They were trapped in these houses they could not afford to keep and could not afford to sell. So you've got businesses over here finally willing to hire, but you have people over here who can't get out from under these bad loans. And as a result, it killed off the mobility that helps make the economy recover and vibrant again. And if you want a vibrant economy, you want to promote mobility, not squash it.
You know, I've run into a number of different people since my time here in Texas that have fascinated me. Number one is people who do roofing jobs. Anybody who lives in the Dallas area knows that we are periodically smitten by hailstorms. And after these hailstorms happen, the area is absolutely flooded by roofing contractors and insurance agents and people like that. Well, I've had a chance to talk to some of these people, and most of them are from outside of the area. Because no area has enough roofing contractors to be able to take care of the sudden, burst of activity that happens after a major hailstorm. So people come from all over the country and come here for a period of months to repair roofs, and signs pop up in people's front yards. This roof is being replaced by such and such company, and this roof is being done by that company.
Yep.
The other thing that I've run into here is our car broke down kind of down in South Dallas a few months ago, and we got it towed to a Firestone place, and it was late in the day. They were about to close, but the nice young man who was running the Firestone franchise was kind enough to keep the store open for us, even though we were late at getting there. And so he got us all set up and said they'd work on the car the next day. And I said, now we've got to figure out, I guess we got to call Uber so that we can get home from here. And he said, where do you live? I said, we live in Little Elm. Now, Little Elm is even further north than Frisco or Plano or some of the other places they're talking about in this article. So the guy says, oh, well, that's great. And I said, why is that? And he said, that's where I live. And I said, you live in Little Elm and you work here? And he said, yeah, drive it every day. And so this guy gave us a ride home. He was probably a 25, 30-year-old guy with some kids, and he lives like a mile from here. In fact, he fishes in the lake, like right down the street from where we live here. And that struck me as I thought, wow, this guy is really committed. He's managed to get himself like an assistant manager role at a Firestone station, and he
can be a big success.
Yeah, and he's going to be successful at whatever he chooses to do. What bothers me most about these kind of reports out of the Census Bureau and any kind of interpretation of them that says the problem is we don't have enough free public transit, or we don't have enough public transit, period, that runs frequently enough, or the houses are in the wrong place, or the jobs are in the wrong place, is that there is some kind of idea that there is a platonic ideal of job distribution that exists up in the ether, that somehow, if only we could get, some people wiser than ourselves to organize it properly, then companies would only open facilities in places where people already need the work, and they wouldn't open facilities in places that are already, booming, like Plano and Frisco and the Colony and other towns north of Dallas. Toyota moved its entire North American headquarters out of California to Texas because it was a desirable thing to do. If you're somebody who wants a job and there's a desirable place to work, you've got to do what Toyota did. You don't think that 52 years in California made that a big decision for the Toyota Corporation to have to move out of? Yes, and a lot of other corporations that we could list. So I guess what offends me most is the patriarchal attitude that these people who take toward people who are low income or low wage or poor or unemployed, is that you can't take care of yourself. So we've got to arrange life around your debilities so that we can give you that hand up, that leg up, so because you're not capable of knowing that if you move from where you are now, where rent averages about $1,250 a month, to Plano, where rent averages about $1,350 a month, but you can make much more than that extra $100 a month because you got a better job there, you'd be smart enough to do that. There are deeper problems here. Life is not fair in any area of life. My brothers are all more handsome and smarter than I am, So it's like that started in the cradle. I had this understanding that life was not fair. But the people who are successful in life are the people who understand that nobody's going to give you a break. You've got to go make a break. You've got to go take the opportunity. And the thing that folks need to hear all people, including myself and people who are people who are actually wealthy, need to be challenged to say, what can you do to better your current circumstances? Not, hey, sit there and wait. That's the kind of thing that gets people killed in Hurricane Katrina, is sit there and wait for the government to do something. If only the apartments were cheaper where the jobs are. If only we had more mass transit and it was free. Now, the other thing I will say as a former elected official is that taxpayers should not be subsidizing public transit in order to transport low-wage workers to places where companies exist. If a company wants more workers, rent a bus and drive them there. If you can't get people in the area who can take the jobs that you have to offer, well, then get your own bus and send it down to South Dallas and have a couple of bus stops down there where people can come. It'll be cheap. You'll get the worker pool that you need, and the taxpayers will not have to subsidize your business. And that's happening across the board. It includes public funded healthcare because a big operation is not providing adequate healthcare to their people, and they will not until government stops doing it, and they have to because of competitive pressures. I've gone on long enough, but basically, don't pity these people. We have no condition called job sprawl. That's a problem. We have no condition called spatial inequality. That's a problem. We just need, as Zig Ziglar used to say, a checkup from the neck up. We need to change our mental attitude toward these things. We need to help our neighbors when we can, but we shouldn't treat them like babies. We should challenge them to be the men and women that they've always dreamed that they could be. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching. Thank you to our friends over at the Patriot Post, and thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com.